Hello and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Steve Marks, Chair of the Board of Trustees and President of Hannah News Service here in Columbus. It's great to see you all here today. We are live streamed today thanks to our live stream partners, the Columbus Dispatch and PNC. Today's forum is sponsored by Carlisle, Patchen and Murphy, and our live streaming partner is Isaac Wales. Won't you please help me thank them? We'd also like to thank those of you watching today who purchased a virtual seat. We are very, very grateful for this support and are able to continue live streaming services in large part because of you. Thank you again. Despite the pandemic, construction and new plans for development and growth of the Central City seem to go unabated. For an update on details, let's turn to our experts. Please welcome Interim Executive Director of Capital Crossroads SID, SID, Mark Conte. By phone, Principal of Urban Design and Planning at NBBJ, Megha Sinha. And our host and newest CMC board member, Editor-in-Chief at Columbus Business First, Doug Buchanan. Doug, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. This has been obviously an interesting year. Mark, we talked at the beginning of the year, and the region was facing certain risks and opportunities, and everything that we talked about seems to have been flipped on its head since then. But I think that the one thing that has not changed is that the construction activity and the development activity has been unaffected to a large degree by the pandemic, or at least that's what it looks like judging from all the activity. What do you think? What have you seen downtown?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible to see a lot of the projects continue and then even some more projects actually break ground. My guess, I'm not the financial lending expert, but my guess is enough of those projects were further enough along in the process
Right.
and funded that they just better to just go forward with them. And certainly with given our economy in the region, a lot of them are still needed.
Yeah.
Now, as we go forward to see, will there be some tweaks on the actual uses inside or maybe how they divide up the space, I think that'll be impacted by what's been happening this year.
Right, right. Megha, how about you? What are you saying?
Hey, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, so I'm going to try my best. It sounds muffled. So I'm assuming the question here is what's my understanding of what's happening right now?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Yeah, so just kind of an overview, given my planning context, the commentary I'll share with all of you today has a little bit of a long-term view, but I will set it in the context of what's happening now. I do want to say that what we're hearing right now from developers is optimism for the year ahead. What is unknown is the year following that, as the economy changes one way or the other, and where the money is what we're going to see. There is a lot of planning going on right now in the region in general, downtown and outside, and that to us is very hopeful because when there's planning, there's going to be work following that.
But have you seen, Megha, any indication that projects that were in the planning stages have been postponed or delayed, or do you expect to see that going forward?
Well, there are some things that are definitely getting dragged out, but the bigger projects that the city and the region needs in terms of infrastructure are going on. So one good example is the East-West Corridor study led by CODA and the City of Columbus and other partners. I think that kind of infrastructure investment is important to unlock properties along those corridor sites, and that will have opportunity for real estate development. So yes, some things are slowing down, but there is still a lot of investment being made in our infrastructure, and we need to keep that going in the region.
Mark, what about you? Have you heard of anything being delayed or significantly pushed back?
No, I haven't heard that, but I'm doing a lot of internal speculating. Because certainly in the Columbus region, we're still short of housing. I think the recent estimate is for the MSA, we're short about 5,000 new housing units per year. So I see developers continuing on with housing plans, and And also trying to get creative with density. So Mega brought up the corridor study, for example. You look at some of the corridors they're looking at, like up through the northwest side, and I think what we're seeing happening at University City Shopping Center, for example, where a strip mall now has been replaced with a strip mall with 6 stories of apartments above it. I think that'll end up being a new, interesting model for a lot of sites where we could add a whole lot of density and hopefully with good design without impacting what people see as traditional single-family home neighborhoods.
Right, right. Can you just briefly give us an overview about the planning study? This is the Morpsey study of the corridors. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. They're looking at a number of corridors for high-capacity transit and also other transportation solutions to help move people better as we are expected to grow, and I can't remember the reassessments, but 500,000, million or more.
Yeah, 1 million by 2050 or something like that.
2050,
Yeah, right. And Mega, how about for you? For this planning study, I mean, what impact do you think that it will have on what actually gets developed? Mega?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
For the planning study that you referenced, how successful do you think it will be in shaping the development and how we develop housing and other uses going forward if you're taking the long-term view?
So is the question how I think the corridor study will be shaping development and downtown development?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so with the corridor study, and I think Mark just mentioned it, the idea is to look at some sort of higher capacity transit options from Broad Street to Main Street. And obviously this study is just about starting, and as that happens, there are things that will take place as obviously better access to parcels along that corridor itself. There will be a network thinking of connecting to that corridor and other parts of the region.
Right.
There will be an increased need for density as we think about transit-oriented development. And all of this is really trendy for the younger working population. This trend has been going on for a while where that sort of development, whether it's density, amenities, walkability, access to transit, that's very attractive to the younger working population, and I would say even the baby boomers, because suddenly you're not dependent on your car anymore, and that opens up a lot of opportunities. That means parcels that have been that are along these corridors that have not been fully leveraged yet will be unlocked, and we'll see, hopefully, to the housing point, more multifamily housing, mixed-use development. I don't think retail is going to die. So all of that should get unlocked as we think about the transit corridor.
But then we're already seeing that downtown, right? I mean, we're seeing a good amount of that coming together.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of people right before the pandemic starting to choose transit to get to work, which was really wonderful as part of downtown CPAS program. But it was really interesting with Mega bringing up amenities and density. I think what's happened over the last 6 months has caused all of us to look at what is important in our lives, both personally and professionally, and what do we want out of our day, every day, whether we're in the office or not, whether we're at home working or in the office working. And it comes down to me to 2 things, space and place. What does my own space look like and my environment, and then what kind of place am I living in what neighborhood? And so I think about the people who work downtown and they do their mid-morning or mid-afternoon coffee break by just going downstairs, going maybe a block to Starbucks or one of the independent coffee shops, getting their coffee, coming back in. Now if they're doing that out in their cul-de-sac, they got to get in their car, they got to drive out, go to the drive-through line, come all the way back. Takes a lot longer. You're not bumping into colleagues. You're not bumping into coworkers. You're not having any of those other interactions. And so what I know there were a lot of hysterical predictions back in April and May that everyone's going to work from home now. People are going to flee the cities. But I don't think, I think the opposite might end up happening. I think in a place like downtown, if you end up living in an apartment or a condo in downtown, you also then have all those amenities you had as if you were working in office space downtown. So downtown to me becomes a even more attractive place given what's happened.
Mega, what do you think about that?
If I may add to that, I think the other interesting thing that might be happening or that might happen is the idea of the residential space and the working space merging together. And that would be a sort of new amenity where you're, I don't know, maybe it's work pods in part of a residential development, co-working within that. So you maybe the office no longer is one centralized destination, but decentralized as part of the residential areas. And that might be an amenity. So you can see residential and office merging almost.
Right. I mean, I was pretty excited about working from home back in March, April. May, it started to get a little old. June, July, August. I mean, I'm ready to go back into the office. I guess, Mark, to your point, like, you think that will happen, that we will see a return to offices, like people will come back.
Yeah. We don't know when, but I think it will happen. I am confident that, there will be a certain percentage of workers that will be allowed or told to work from home permanently, and that's going to happen. But there's a whole lot of jobs out there where the interaction you need with your coworkers just cannot be replaced enough by all the electronic communication tools we have. And I talked about, the collisions you have on the sidewalk with people the information you just kind of pick up by osmosis being in the office. All of that, you can't really replace that with instant messaging and Slack and the like. And then for companies that really need a team to be creative, and I'm not just talking about your traditional creative businesses like advertising, marketing, but all teams that need to be creative, you need them in a room together at the same time quite often.
Right. Yeah. But some percentage of jobs are likely to stay out, and businesses will be, even the offices that they have, the space that they have, they're going to be using it differently. Do you see it meaning like a decrease in the overall demand for office space, and at the same time we're building all of this? So how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because if it ends up even being 5%,
right,
that's a huge number when you're talking about the amount of office space in downtown. Right now in downtown we have about, looking at my cheat sheet now, 450,000 square feet of space that's under construction, and then another 700,000 that's been announced and planned for, quite a bit, at a time when we have about 1.7 million square feet of office space vacant in downtown.
Okay.
So how are all these numbers going to work if all these people end up starting to work from home? What we'll continue to see, and we've seen this over the last 20 years, is repositioning of buildings.
Okay.
So for example, like the Levesque Tower was all office for a long time, and now is office, condo, apartments, and hotel.
Yeah.
You think further back, the Seneca Hotel at Broad and Grant started as a hotel, then became an office building, sat vacant for too long, and now finally is back as apartments. And so I think we'll see repositioning of some of our older stock like that, that'll take some space off the market and allow this new stuff to come on.
Mm-hmm. Megan, how about you? How do you think these trends are going to affect the overall demand for office space?
Yeah, so we are obviously, as Mark said, seeing that some of the, there is a decrease in demand a little bit, but office space continued to be leased during COVID. We are seeing work in the renovations of offices, because I don't think offices are going to go. They might take on a little bit of a different interior format, and we're keeping a close eye on that. The thing I wanted to point to is the bigger trend in kind of at the national level. We know that corporate location projects are favoring mid-sized cities and mid-sized suburbs over larger urban centers. And one recent article from an Industry Week publication had kind of kept, and I don't know where they did some research and some surveys, and they highlighted top 10 mid-sized cities that would be strong potential candidates for these new corporate locations. And Columbus was on the list. So I think we might win out in the bigger trend where New York and other big cities are getting priced out and are not as much viable anymore. And folks are realizing the potential of mid-sized cities.
Yeah, Mark and I, we were talking earlier about how there's an exodus of residential, people living in New York City and San Francisco. I mean, that was all, those cities were they were overpriced anyway. But now with COVID, you're starting to see those suburbs around those cities explode. And you don't see that happening in Columbus as far as all those residents who moved downtown suddenly deciding they did the wrong thing and heading back out.
Probably not, and one of the reasons I would say is much due to the issue of supply that we have. We have a big lack of supply. There's not a whole lot of places people can start moving to. And for the person who's really looking to expand and get that single-family home, those are really in short supply. So then that becomes an affordability issue, even at a market rate level. I don't know, maybe the given our size and our population density, maybe we're just more patient. And things were really pretty bad in New York City at the beginning of the pandemic, and we never had that big initial spike like they did.
Yeah, that's true. Megha, how about you? Do you see changes in how cities have residents and density in downtowns?
Mark, could you repeat that question for me? I'm having a better luck understanding you, maybe because you're closer to the microphone or something.
Do you see any longer-term impact in people either being attracted to or to downtowns or going the other direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been a trend, obviously pre-COVID, right? Where, as I said, the millennial population and even baby boomers have been gravitating towards downtown. Right now, there is a little bit of a shift again back to the suburbs. But to me, we need to think of the health of our region as a whole. And while so I think there's going to be the back and forth. People will still come to downtown if we give them a reason to be downtown. And I talk about transit, amenities, workspaces. But other cities around our downtowns, I'm thinking, Westerville, Gahanna, Dublin, those have been positioning themselves pretty well over the last decade, trying to attract some of that population. So if they are downtown, we'll also be seeing some of that growth. So I think as a region, there might be some shifts between downtown Columbus and our suburban downtown, but as a region as a whole, we are going to continue seeing population. We've already talked about North-East projections, and that's being played out. We are going to be 3 million by 2050. That trend is up and coming. And so what does that mean? I know we talked a little bit about housing, but I would love for us to talk about the affordable piece of it. That's, again, a market sector where we see there is work to be done, and hopefully developers see that. Affordable housing, fair market housing is a value added.
Well, for sure. And Mark, I think you had highlighted that in your in the SID's report last year, right? That's a huge need.
Yeah, that overall in the region, like I said, we're about 5,000 units short per year, and with the region continuing to add jobs prior to COVID, we were getting to a situation where there were a lot of apartment buildings that were kind of on the margin out in the suburbs that were lower rents, kind of run down, hadn't been upgraded in a while, or may even had been in receivership. They were then slowly able to start charging more rents, do more upgrades. Well, then the people who were living there had to move out and find some other place to go. So the affordability issue has been trickling down in not the right way. And so even if we were to build more luxury housing, that would still help the affordable sector to some degree. But that's still, again, no replacement for needing true subsidized affordable housing.
Right. Let me ask you another question about the desirability of downtown, because after the protests over the summer, you did a survey of your members, and I believe it was a majority of them said that they were worried about staying in business long-term downtown because of the disruptions. Can you just talk about the impact of the protest on the downtown market?
Well, yeah, the protests certainly had a significant impact both in property damage and with loss of business, especially to the ground floor businesses, which in downtown is mostly lunchtime and some dinner time restaurants. We surveyed a number of ways, both field surveys and electronic surveys, and the amount of damage that took place was in the millions of dollars and probably millions of dollars in loss of business. Combine that with all the uncertainty and the lack of business they were already having because of COVID,
Right.
put everybody, on edge. I think it was 58% of our ground floor businesses are concerned about staying in business, which is very much in line with what the Ohio Restaurant Association survey said. And so we've been working in partnership with the city to try and do something, anything that can help them. And even a 5 to 10% boost in business could mean all the difference in the world for them staying in business for the next year or two. And so thankfully, the city, a few weeks ago, of course, announced expanded outdoor dining areas into parking lots or the right-of-way. That's going to be a huge help for those restaurants that want to take advantage of it. And we're continuing to work with the city to come up with other ideas. Neither the CID, these businesses, nor the city, we've never been through any of this before.
Yeah.
We are trying to find our way and just get our heads together and come up with the right ideas.
And did you take that survey right around the time when most of the businesses were still boarded up? Because when you drive through now, it's not nearly as bad, but I don't know if it's that improved or,
Yeah, that's improved greatly. Most of the boards have come down. A lot of boards that are up are for projects that they're anticipating doing some major renovations in the next year. So they're like, well, we'll just leave them up. And then some businesses that they know they're just going to be closed for a while because of COVID, they're leaving the boards up. And some places are putting them up at night, taking them down during the day, doing a lot of work. And the boards that are up, most of them, thankfully, they've engaged artists in trying to brighten up and also continue to spread the message that the protesters were out there in the first place trying to get across to folks.
Right. Mega, if you can hear me, have you seen any long-term trends from any impact from the protests on the desirability of downtown?
Yeah, well, this is a question I definitely defer to Mark, and he's much closer to this. Just from my personal experience, I know this has been kind of a double whammy for businesses, especially retail with COVID and then the protest. It is what it is. It's important to our I guess our community and our society that the protests happen. And I guess as Mark said, we need to figure out what we can do from now to shore up our local businesses, because if we want offices and residential to thrive and our downtowns to thrive, it's not going to happen without retail. Because you need to have that place where you can go get your coffee and your lunch and your dinners, and whatever we can do to now shore up those businesses would be vital to offices and residential all around.
Mm-hmm. Mark, have you gotten a sense for the businesses downtown, what percentage of the workers have come back?
Yeah, we surveyed our office tenants in the Capitol Crossroads, Sid, where the bulk of the offices are. Our best guess right now is about 20% of the workforce is back.
That's terrible.
Yeah. We think that'll get up to 26% by the first of the year, and then 37% next year until there's a vaccine or a good treatment. But with those last two numbers, of 50 to 70% of the businesses in each of those periods didn't even answer the question because they just have no idea.
Okay.
So people are really they're still finding their way. There's a lot of uncertainty. They're taking their cue from the state. The state announced they're not going to bring workers back until the first of the year at the earliest.
Yep.
And then for the corporations, they're of course taking cues from people who might not even be in Columbus and not know what's happening here on the ground.
Right. Yeah, I know for our office, we've been told through the end of the year, and then we'll evaluate. But that's for kind of just like opening the offices to let anybody in. Now, I'm sure we're very similar to other places where if you want to go in, you kind of have to tell somebody so that they can keep track of who all is there, how many people are there, and it's just it makes it difficult, right?
Yeah. And then for somebody who's going to come to downtown that hasn't been here in a while, say they were working here every day, I think the more alarming thing will be seeing the sheer number of people who are in need out on the streets. Homeless shelters had to really watch their capacity and not be over capacity like they normally have been. There's a lot more people out on the streets, not just in downtown, but throughout the entire city. A lot more people out panhandling at highway exits, for example. a lot more people more desperate than they were. And so that's a big thing we got to tackle now as a community immediately, is making sure we're getting enough services to the folks that need them.
Mega, how about this question of providing services? Do you get involved in that at all, in the inequality in society, and how cities can help that?
Help? Can you repeat that?
Mark, can you
In
repeat that?
context of.
Do you get involved at all with the people in need in these communities, in need of social services?
Oh, yeah, no, not directly. So I know, I'll defer to Mark to that. Directly, I don't.
Okay. Let's move to a pretty significant project that was unveiled just in the last few days, the Scioto Peninsula. I mean, it's been out there for a while, but they actually are going ahead with it. And again, 400,000.
Well, that project, I think, has about 200,000 square feet of office.
In the initial phase. And again, is this going to come under your SID, or is that going to be just off?
Just off outside our
Okay.
SID, yeah.
Okay. Are people concerned? Have you heard any concerns about adding all of that capacity while this is still uncertain?
Yeah, I hear that concern every time there is any new office announcement.
Okay.
that might compete with downtown. If you look at the downtown office rental rates, they have not kept up with inflation over the last 20 years. And the Columbus market as a whole, both downtown and the suburbs, is really below a lot of other mid-sized cities and certainly larger cities. So yeah, anytime there's an announcement of new office space, it is a concern. But the Scioto Peninsula represents just a tremendous opportunity. I got to Columbus in that time period, after Central High had closed, but before COSI was there.
Oh, yeah.
And you just knew what an opportunity that was going to be for a great, dense urban neighborhood. So it is from that aspect, exciting to see that start.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. And you said there were obviously several other projects in the pipeline, and we should just continue to see them come through.
If they're under construction, yes. The ones I wonder about are the ones that have been announced that wanted to include some amount of office space, and I would guess that they're probably rethinking if that office space makes sense for them, and their lenders are probably asking them that same question. So for the buildings that we're looking for to bring on a lot of office space, they're of course looking for some type of anchor tenant to then really pull the trigger on it. I'm not sure those anchor tenants are necessarily looking for that right now. But there's still a tremendous opportunity for more housing development downtown, certainly. Right now, we're probably at about 9,600 residents. Back in 1950, we were closer to 30,000 residents, so we have lots of room to grow for that.
Yeah, and there's obviously still plenty of surface parking lots and buildings to be repurposed. I mean, it's good to see the activity, but as Mega pointed out, you obviously need to have that affordable aspect to it. Are you hopeful with what you have seen so far proposed that will not only add, all just sheer numbers of housing units, but actually affordable housing units, specifically downtown?
Yeah, we still need that on a continual basis. As we add more market rate, we are going to need more affordable. We will need more subsidized affordable, especially. We've had these projects every 4 or 5 years that pop up, Commons at Grant, Commons at Buckingham, Hawthorne Grove. And if we could just keep getting some of these coming up every few years, that'll help keep things even. Downtown, given all the other projects it's had, historically, has had a lot of subsidized housing units and low-income and affordable housing units. And so it's only been recently that we've started to even that out, but we just got to make sure we keep that even. But as I always say, we got to make sure we keep every neighborhood even. It's the responsibility of every neighborhood and every community in this region to have good, affordable, and safe housing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is one thing to say that, and you were on a commission for a while,
Yeah.
and it's another one to still get these projects approved, get them in, and there's always that creative tension, I don't know, between the commissions and the developers. How do the commissions play a role in this?
With the commission I served on, it was a historic review commission, so if it met those design guidelines,
Yeah.
great. We didn't really care too much about density and things of that nature, and use, the actual use really wasn't part of our jurisdiction. But you bring up a good point, and this impacts both the affordable, true affordable housing, like subsidized affordable housing, but every type of housing, and tends to make housing more expensive, is the sheer number of zoning variances and changes you might have to go through to get something approved in a community. And a good example is in a lot of our urban neighborhoods, they're still zoned under a conventional suburban-style zoning code. So if you wanted to put up a garage with a carriage house above it and just have all these individuals just start adding all these apartments throughout your community, in your neighborhood, you have to get a whole lot of variances in order to make that happen, because you have side yard, rear yard setbacks, all these things. But if you have a green field, sometimes it's just a lot easier and it's a lot quicker. It just depends on the community. And that ends up driving the costs. Another big thing that's always driven up costs, especially downtown, is having to provide warehousing for automobiles. And so if we could become more urban, if people could walk and bike more, and use all these other alternatives that have popped up like scooters, and get our car usage way down, we could use this space for people instead of cars.
Right. Meg, I'm sure you've seen examples from, around the world, really, that as these downtowns have emptied out, some cities have added bike lanes, they've encouraged bike use, they've kind of rethought how their streets function. Am I right on that? Have you seen that?
Is your question around bikeways and all of that infrastructure in downtown?
Yeah, to make downtowns less car dependent.
Yeah, so again, as I said, part of the trend in attraction to downtowns is all of that infrastructure. And I think our downtown and downtowns across the country that are seeing that and are adding, we talked about infrastructure for e-scooters and e-bikes, bikeways, pedestrian pathways even. Safe ways for people to do that and not depend or really create the now very famous 15-minute city. Walkability, bikeability, it'll make it attractive for people to move downtown. And absolutely in our own downtown, we've done some of this work. Mark, you can talk more about the trail project we started in the Discovery District that unfortunately went on hold. I think it's time that those projects start back up again, because if we had all that infrastructure in place, Discovery District, which is kind of the east side of downtown, has a huge potential for future development. If we put that infrastructure in place, those parcels suddenly become very attractive to developers, and that can bring the downtown growth we've been talking about to the east side.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that project, but first I need to interject to say that we will move to questions from our audience in just a few minutes. So we hope to have some live audience questions. The mic is right over there. And also from our live stream audience as well. So if you have a question, just go ahead and put that in, and we'll move to that in just one moment. So Mark, how about that? What was she referencing in the Discovery District?
So in the Discovery District really has sort of an unparalleled collection of arts, cultural, and educational institutions, all packed into one neighborhood. But the problem is when you go to one place like the library, you don't realize from the setting just how close the museum's going to be. And so if you want to do these multiple trips, you tend to park one place, go there, get in your car, go to the other place. We wanted to create what Mega called the Discovery Trail, and do more pedestrian amenities to connect all of these different attractions, get you out of your car, get you walking around more, get more interaction of all the people who are in that neighborhood. We ran into funding issues in the beginning, and now we have some other issues to deal with right now. But yeah, we do long-term want to continue all those great placemaking activities. And one of the big barriers in downtown, of course, is Broad Street. That old saying, when you build for cars, you get cars. That's Broad Street. And if we could remake Broad Street and remake the connections across Broad Street for people, we'll see more people.
Yeah, kind of like, they did it on Nationwide Boulevard, and that transformed Nationwide Boulevard. I mean, that is a completely different experience as a pedestrian, as I often was walking around there. Okay, so it is CMC's tradition to take audience questions. Jane Scott, CMC's president, is curating questions from the live stream audience. She's right there. If you are in our audience, please remember to keep your microphone time to the question, and we thank you for avoiding editorial comments. Jane,
All right.
what is our first question?
Well, Eric Brown asked, is there any prospect for truly affordable housing for those with very limited resources, not just by the definition of affordable housing, but for the truly poor to afford?
So right now, I would say no. I don't know of any projects, but that's again where other organizations like National Church Residences have come in with Commons at Grant, Commons at Buckingham, and I know the one issue with those projects has always been cobbling together all these sources of funding just to get one project off the ground, and they're doing this all over the region, all over the country. So I'm hoping they continue to work on that, and I think some more of those projects would be welcome.
That has been a huge topic as we've delved deeper into affordable housing, though, is that, when you talk about something being affordable, being 80% of the poverty level, but when you actually back out the numbers, the wage that you're earning to even get to that point, I mean, it's still very, very difficult for somebody at that salary level to afford even a basic apartment. So, to the questioner, I think we're going to need to see everything else fill in above them before it gets down there, because I think we have an affordability issue even with what we're calling affordable right now. So. Anyway, did you have another question?
Well, I'll throw in a question for myself. All of us who have lived in Columbus for any length of time have seen all the effort that have been put into developing our downtown. The Short North, the Discovery District, German Village, the theater area, you name it. Experience Columbus, we've all put a tremendous amount of time and energy and money into developing it. How far back have we set it? I know that's a crystal ball question, but we've set the downtown back because of the psyche of the folks who live there, the psyche that people are not coming downtown to work, they're not coming down to theaters. What are we going to have to do to get this back?
That's a good question, and something we're talking about in my office every day. I've heard that expression a lot from people saying that, downtown has been set back a lot, and it's again, that issue of having that crystal ball. We don't know when COVID's going to end. We're still learning about COVID and how it's transmitted to some degree. And we got issues then of other parts of our city where there might be spikes up at Ohio State that might then impact what we're able to do downtown. And then, like I said, we have a big social service issue on our hands right now. I wish I had a more definitive answer than that. We do have some issues, and we have to come together and figure out how we're going to solve that.
Well, from a organizational perspective, what kind of leadership would you like to see come together, and who would be involved with that leadership team to help bring the city back?
I think it's some of what we've started already, convening business owners, office tenants, and people in city government to, again, initially sort of on a triage basis, figure out what we can do. And then longer term, I think we're going to need more support from the business leadership in the business community to really tackle this problem.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't know how far we've set it back, but I continue to be optimistic that we're going to spring back once the virus gets under control. I think it's going to be a very rapid restocking of downtown, I guess, with the workers and the amenities, and hopefully all the business. Hopefully there'll be some surviving retailers and restaurants and whatnot. But I mean, if you just think about it in your own lives, why do you live in Columbus? Well, you live in Columbus because there's a lot of great, fun things to do, and as soon as we can get back to doing them safely, I think people are going to be desperate to go back out there. That's just my 2 cents.
And one set of data I was actually looking at this morning, Apple puts out these mobility trend graphs for a lot of cities. They take a look at how many people are using Apple Maps to do a route, either walking, biking, transit, or driving. And I took a look at the cities, or not the cities, but the countries they're tracking. It's about 27 countries. Half of those countries, their transit usage is already back up to 95% or higher, whereas Columbus, it's I think down 20%, because there's been a lot of concern about how many people are really going to, in the United States, go back to transit. Aren't they going to be scared of it? And you look in other countries and places that have dealt with these types of pandemics before, transit usage has bounced back, transit usage is fine, it's completely safe, and it is here in Columbus. I just bring that up as an indicator about how quickly things really can spring back.
Yeah, I think so.
Once we get this under control.
Yeah, good point. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lee Martin with Rimkus Consulting Group. I had 2 quick questions or concerns about development generally. One is the fact that we see a lot of apartments shoehorned into residential areas that put stress on roads and other infrastructure elements. Some of those have flaming torch identification signage. Apparently, we're not melting the polar ice fast enough. That's kind of a separate issue. But then the second big issue is infrastructure development, and I think scooters and bikes are great, but the weather in Columbus most of the year is pretty crummy, and I think at some point we're going to need light rail or something like that, trolleys like they used to have in Columbus, or interurban rail or something like that. So I just wondered what the panel thought of those.
I'm all for light rail. Yeah, and what Mega brought up about the corridor study, that's really where that's going to come from. We have the need and for light rail and bus rapid transit now. If it's built, people will ride it. We know that's true. The studies over the last 30 years have borne that out, as well as every other community in this country that's added light rail, either as something new or as an addition to what they had. The traffic issues regionally, they're only going to get worse as we add people. On a micro level, I know there's some very specific issues when, you put an apartment building on a specific block. Yeah. That gets a little delicate, but generally, we're going to have to expect more traffic, and we're going to have to then invest in ways to move people, and maybe in ways that we don't have to move them as far, that if you had more amenities in your own neighborhood and didn't have to go cross town to get to the shopping you need, that would be better as well.
Mega, any thoughts on that?
No, I think what Mark said sounds good. And I'm obviously trying to hear in and out of these conversations, but with the mobility work on transit, I think light rail or not, we have to solve a bigger transit issue, because the value of our mid-sized city is going to be in connecting our urban Columbus downtown with all with kind of the broader region. And an efficient, equitable way of doing it is really transit, whether it's light rail or not, doesn't matter. And I think our CODA is doing a great job, but we need to build on the transit network even more efficiently, even more mindfully, so that we can provide opportunities across the region to all of us. And that, I think, will make a stronger downtown.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, you have a question?
Hi, I'm Trent Smith with the Franklinton Board of Trade. And Mark, you touched on this in some of your earlier comments about the need for density, but some of the challenges with variances and zoning and all the headaches that go with trying to make that happen. There's been a lot of talk, especially recently, around the idea of housing folks who are in desperate need with clusters of tiny homes. And I know that those are something that the city so far has not really been interested in looking at, but realizing the gap for affordable housing and where it is today, and the fact that it's probably going to widen, do you think, and I would be interested in Mega's response as well, do you think tiny homes have a future in Columbus, Ohio?
Yes. I would say I think all of these things do. It's what's the proposal? What are the details? Where are they going to be? How are they managed? What do they look like? All of those things that go into any development decision.
Okay. Sharon, what do you mean by tiny homes exactly?
There's a prototype that a homeless advocate organization built out on the hilltop.
Yeah.
It's like, 250 square feet. It's literally like walking into a large walk-in closet.
Yeah.
Where there is I forget the name of the beds that fold off the wall.
Murphy bed.
A Murphy bed.
Murphy beds, yeah.
They have a Murphy bed, they have a tiny little sink, they have a battery backup, and they have solar power on the roof so
Okay.
that they can provide heat. So they're very economical for folks who are just desperately in need of a shelter.
Right.
Some of the ideas that I've heard around creating these clusters of tiny home communities is that services would also be provided within that context to help these folks kind of get into a better situation so that they can move out of that and into a better living environment. But right now, the need is just that, we don't have enough roofs for these people to live under. And so this seems like it would be a really, really affordable, these can be built for like $1,500 to $2,000 a piece.
Wow.
I mean, they're really, really affordable. So I just really hope that the city gets serious about, seriously addressing that for neighborhoods like Franklinton and Old Town East and places like that, where I think they could be acceptable if they were in the right area.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
my pitch for that need of shelter for the folks that really need it.
Yeah. Megan, your thoughts on that? Megan?
Yeah, so I think I would, before I comment on that, I would point everyone to look at MOST's recently released regional housing study. That has a lot of insights into how to perhaps go about solving the affordable housing problem. Having said that, I think all of these creative ways of living should be on the table. Micro units, co-living, granny lots, whatever we do, all of us, the public sector, the private sector, need to rethink our zoning and our land use policies to allow for different ways of living and accommodating people's residences. I think gone are the days where we build sprawling suburban lots. And without that, without density, without all of that in the mix, we won't be able to solve the affordable housing issue in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the comment, and I think we must always ask ourselves, can we think outside the box? And definitely small homes are part of that.
Yeah. Jane, we have one last question.
Well, this question is from Natalie Wilson, and it goes into something that I was going to ask about also. If we are 5,000 houses short a year, is it because of a lack of contractors, workers, or space? And Doug, at your power breakfast, the Columbus Business First, there was quite a long conversation about zoning issues and the need for a major overhaul of all of our zoning laws, not just in Columbus, but in the region, that are adding costs, driving workers away, making developers have to pay so much more, which there again goes against the whole affordable housing equation. Why are we so short of housing, and what are we doing as a region to improve our zoning laws so that it can be more friendly to developers and to housing?
Do you want to take that, or?
I'll have you start.
Well, I mean, what we have heard, and you're right, that Columbus is starting on an overhaul of the entire zoning code, but I haven't heard how that's coming along, but it's not going to be anything quick. I mean, this is a contentious process, but the fact is that Columbus recognizes the need, they recognize the trends, and so I think it's great that they're doing this. What we keep hearing from the builders and the developers is that we're sitting here in downtown Columbus talking about this over and over and over again, and the conversation kind of sort of seems to be getting out to the suburbs, but not nearly with the urgency that we're seeing it. Because to Trent's question, we need tiny houses. We need, we need all kinds of housing. We need all kinds of housing. We need to put it everywhere. And if you're a builder and you want to go to one of the suburbs, you're still going to hit up against those walls that you've been hitting up, for 30, 40 years. Am I wrong on that, Mark?
No, and unfortunately, we've had bad projects. We've had ugly, dense projects. And so if you're a community and somebody comes in and says, yeah, I want to build this 5-story apartment building, and you're thinking of that ugly one,
Right.
that's going to hurt you. So a lot of it is better design as well, and making sure that the design is really fitting in with that community.
Okay.
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed today's forum. I know I certainly did. It's clear that we've got a lot of building going on and a lot of ideas about what should be being built. So it'll be interesting to watch as we move into next year, how it changes and adapts to our current environment. Next week, September 23rd, is CMC's annual meeting, Intrinsic Bias, Rebooting Your Biased Brain. It features authors Vincent Brown and Dr. Janet Reed, presented in partnership with the Central Ohio Diversity Consortium. This discussion will be a must-see TV. Please don't miss it. Thanks to our sponsors, Carlisle, Patchen, and Murphy, our live streaming sponsor, Isaac Wiles, live stream partners, PNC and the Columbus Dispatch, and to our online virtual seat patrons, thank you. A special thanks to our speakers, Mark Conte, Mega Sinha, and Doug Buchanan. We hope to see you again soon, but till then, be well and be safe. Thanks.